After years of being completely untouchable due to the shittiness of the film I just reviewed, as well as its predecessor, the Texas Chainsaw franchise may have just been left for dead, but as a matter of fact, none other than Michael Bay would come along to reboot it and save Leatherface from total obscurity. His production company, Platinum Dunes, was instrumental in shaping the next entry in this wild franchise, namely 2003's remake/reboot of the original film's story, also titled The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I've already talked about this film's impact and the broader trend of 2000s horror reboots in the second episode of my original series, Terror Time, so if you're interested in hearing more, you can check that video out too. But regarding the 2003 movie individually, it really comes out of the gate swinging with the best opening to any Texas Chainsaw movie, period. For example, we have John Larroquette reprising his role as narrator, which makes for a great dose of eerie nostalgia right off the bat. Additionally, the youthful energy of the main characters combines with humorous, naturalistic dialogue and believable acting to create by far and away the best group of characters in this entire franchise, even better than the original. I love how they recreate classic shots from the first movie while also implementing iconic new ones, allowing this movie to prod our memories without being overly dependent on fan service. Despite looking a lot more modern and being a truly beautiful looking movie, Texas Chainsaw 2003 also maintains that dirty, horrific feeling that set the original film apart so much. But it's really the content of this first sequence that makes it so unforgettable. The setup is absolutely perfect, making for a familiar yet still unique introduction, but when our characters pick up a hitchhiker in this film, this time a young, traumatized woman, it ends in a truly shocking way. The hitchhiker scene from the first movie will always be iconic and suspenseful, but this absolutely devastating opening that culminates in this girl's surprising, horrific suicide is even better. It anchors this film on a heavy emotional weight, a risk that could easily blow up in its face, but the movie handles death seriously, granting enough time and care to the aftermath of this tragic occurrence. The cast does an absolutely fantastic job of bringing the impact of her death to life, and it's really easy to get us invested in what happens next, especially as they explore a rundown mill decorated with creepy dolls and children's drawings, making us feel like we're in this depraved adventure alongside them. There's just one issue, though.
It's about your age.
They don't know what damn state they're in. The movie just continues to impress when the legendary R. Lee Ermey, famous for being the drill sergeant in Full Metal Jacket, comes into the picture as basically the same character that made him famous. He plays an unhinged sheriff who's just as much of a nut as any psychopath in the previous films, but is played in a sardonically humorous and yet also absolutely terrifying, intimidating way that lends him much more believability than, this troglodyte. I absolutely love how much of a hilarious piece of shit this guy is, all summed up perfectly by these two lines.
God damn it, I got just as much respect for a dead body as anybody around here. Hey! Get that nasty goddamn thing out of the back seat of my goddamn car. Put it in the trunk. What the hell's the matter with you?
In due time, some of the characters find their way to an old house and we get a fantastic, intense new take on Leatherface's first kill with the hammer. He looks menacing, moves in the perfect hulking manner, and launches us into an amazing chase scene soon after. This is a spectacular, pulse-pounding thrill ride, making use of hanging laundry sheets in the frame to disorient us, as well as this horrific moment where this guy almost escapes Leatherface's grasp, but is taken away. We see in excruciating detail how he resists to no avail, making for a more than sufficient successor to the original's version of this scene. One of the few critiques I have for this film, however, are these scenes in the basement of the house, which basically functions as Leatherface's dungeon. They're incredibly good-looking scenes with brutal torture on display that really adds to a sense of dread, but I do wish a little bit less explicit gore was shown, similar to the original, as it would once again force us to imagine the details. But even that's just a minor detail, and I'm immediately on the edge of my seat once again with the truly disturbing scene of the sheriff tormenting and commanding the remaining characters, forcing their heads into the dirt and offering a sort of psychological horror that's often ignored in slashers. This is especially apparent in this long, slow burn scene where he torments this poor kid by forcing him to relive the death he just saw and nearly kills him as well, showing how this movie perfectly understands pacing and suspense. After the truly jaw-dropping conclusion in which he tries to shoot the sheriff only for the gun to be blank, all hell breaks loose with Leatherface crashing the party and unveiling his new mask made from our protagonist's boyfriend's face in a very uncanny and emotionally disturbing moment. Jessica Biel does a phenomenal job as our final girl here, perfectly portraying the myriad of emotions that one would go through in such a macabre scenario. She's soon drugged by some seemingly nice older ladies who turn out to be part of the family and, in another emotionally mature and moving scene, comes to in the presence of one of her last surviving friends, being slowly impaled on a meat hook, wallowing in misery. She ends up having to kill him, his blood raining down on her as she sobs and the music swells. It's a true highlight and sets this movie apart not only from its fellow sequels, but also from most other slashers of the era. Horror isn't just blood and guts, it's suspense and disturbing, emotionally visceral content, and this movie totally gets that. I fucking adore the final major chase scene through this almost gothic-esque forest with so much great horror imagery and intense cat and mouse hiding scenes in these old wooden shacks as she and the other remaining survivor fight for their lives. The one major thing this film misses from the original is the strong social commentary throughout, but in the meat factory-based finale, a little bit of the original allegory shines through, contrasting the violent imagery we've been seeing with the sight of hanging animal carcasses. Outside of this, though, the final showdown is a pure masterpiece with amazing fluid camera work and transitions in this freezer scene, not to mention the absolute knockout part of the protagonist hiding in a locker, waiting for Leatherface to come toward her, and then jumping out and cutting his damn arm off. These scenes all have my heart beating out of my chest, creating more tension than anything else in this franchise outside of the chases from the original film, and though it makes the final girl more of a badass than Sally was, it still maintains that element of luck, meaning it hasn't lost the idea of a predator-prey relationship that lay within the original subtext. She escapes the factory, hitchhiking with a trucker like Sally tried to, but when he attempts to get help in the very same area from whence she ran, she freaks out, just as the poor girl from the opening did, causing him to pull over. The family members search for her as she desperately tries to hotwire the truck and make her getaway, building an unbelievable amount of tension until we're treated to the glorious surprise that she actually took the sheriff's cop car, with which she then runs his old ass over. I mean, come on, this shit is just awesome. It's everything an action-packed horror movie should be. It makes use of amazing imagery, emphasizing water and rain a lot within its setting, which draws an interesting contrast with the dry, sunny feel of the original, which I think just encapsulates what makes this remake work so well. It has so many great original ideas, but also doesn't forget where it came from, perfectly balancing itself as its own distinctive work. I love this movie, which I can't say for remakes very often, but damn does it apply here. I really liked it when I first watched it, but after my rewatch for this video, wow. Maybe it's the fact that I'm watching it right after the shit show that was the fourth movie, but the 2003 version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre is damn near a masterpiece. This might be seen as too high by some, but I proudly give this movie a 4.5 out of 5, as it so beautifully balances humor, action, horror, suspense, and emotion to make for one of the most purely thrilling and enjoyable horror experiences of the early 21st century.